It never went extinct. Not really. Something that massive doesn't just disappear, it waits. And somewhere in Earth's past, a predator grew so perfectly adapted that extinction might have just been a pause. What if the never stopped evolving? What would it look like right now? And more importantly, would we even see it coming? Around 60 million years ago, long after the dinosaurs vanished, something else took control. A snake so large it rewrote what predator meant. 15 meters long, over 1,000 kilograms, thick as a human torso stacked twice. It didn't need venom. It didn't need speed. It only needed pressure. It would wrap, tighten, and wait until the body inside it simply stopped. But here's the strange part. You wouldn't even know it was there. Perfect camouflage, silent movement, patient hunting. It didn't chase prey, it erased it. Fish, turtles, crocodiles. Nothing was safe in those swampy waters. So what killed it? Climate. Or at least, that's what we think. Because when the planet shifted, everything changed. Temperatures rose, then dropped. Ecosystems collapsed. Food chains broke. And the Titanoboa vanished. But what happens when a creature like that doesn't die, but adapts? What if instead of disappearing, it evolved past the limits that destroyed everything else? Because that's when things stop being prehistoric and start becoming something far more dangerous. Something modern. And this is where it gets weird. The Earth back then wasn't like today. It was hotter, wetter, relentless. Average temperatures hovered around 25 degrees Celsius year-round. No ice caps, no cold refuges, just endless heat. Perfect for cold-blooded killers. Because creatures like Titanoboa didn't generate their own heat. They borrowed it. From the air, the water, the sun. More heat meant more energy. More energy meant more size. And more size meant dominance. But then everything spiked. 56 million years ago, the planet overheated. Fast. An event now called the Paleocene thermal maximum. Temperatures surged up to 8 degrees Celsius higher. Oceans turned into warm, acidic traps. Entire ecosystems collapsed. So here's the question. Did Titanoboa thrive, or did it struggle? At first, it seems obvious. More heat equals more power, right? But that's not even the craziest part. Because too much heat breaks systems. Oxygen levels drop. Waters acidify. Fish die. And suddenly, the apex predator has nothing left to eat. So what does a creature like that do when its world disappears? It moves. Maybe onto land. Maybe toward the poles, where heat spread like wildfire, turning frozen regions into tropical hunting grounds. Imagine that shift. A sea monster learning to hunt mammals. Camels. Early horses. Primitive giants. But here's where it flips. Size becomes a problem. Because the bigger you are, the harder it is to survive outside your perfect environment. So the Titanoboa faced a choice. Adapt or vanish. And that's when evolution did something unexpected, something no snake had ever done before. And that's when things changed. The cooling came next. Slow at first, then unstoppable. Forests at the poles froze. Tropical zones shrank. Heat, its greatest advantage, started disappearing. For a cold-blooded giant, that's a death sentence. Unless it rewrites its biology. And this is where it gets weird. Because while snakes today are cold-blooded, nature has already broken that rule before. Some fish generate their own heat. Not fully, not perfectly, but enough. Through a system called countercurrent heat exchange, they trap warmth inside their bodies. Muscles generate heat. Blood redistributes it. Internal warmth in a cold world. Now imagine that idea scaled up. Applied to something 15, maybe 20 meters long. The Titanoboa evolves. It becomes partially warm-blooded. Now it doesn't rely entirely on the sun. Now it can hunt in colder regions. Now it doesn't slow down. And suddenly, it's no longer limited. But that's not even the craziest part. Because once a predator removes its biggest weakness, there's nothing left holding it back. So evolution keeps going. Different environments, different pressures, different versions of the same nightmare. Ocean hunters, land stalkers, desert ambushers, each one more specialized, more efficient, more terrifying. And what happens next changes everything. Because now we're not talking about one creature anymore. We're talking about a lineage, a system, an entire hidden world of predators that never stopped adapting. And some of them might be closer than you think. Fast forward millions of years. The world dries out. Forests retreat. Deserts expand. And something impossible emerges. A Titanoboa in the desert. At first, it sounds absurd. A massive snake in scorching, waterless terrain? But evolution doesn't care about assumptions. It adapts. Skin thickens to lock in moisture. Color shifts to pale sand, blending perfectly with dunes. Muscles change, stronger, denser, built not just for constriction, but for digging, burrowing, hiding beneath the surface, waiting. But here's the strange part. You'd never see it, because it hunts from below. Vibrations in the sand, heat signatures above. A herd passes, and then it erupts. Fast, violent, precise. One strike, one rap, silence, and then it's gone again. Buried, invisible. But that's not even the craziest part, because there's another version. Out in the oceans, a warm-blooded Titanoboa that never left the water. Faster, stronger, capable of crossing entire seas, feeding on massive prey, competing with the largest predators alive. Now imagine this. You're swimming, open water, calm surface, and beneath you, something older than history is moving. You won't hear it. You won't see it. You'll only feel it when it's too late. And this is where everything connects. Because by now, these creatures aren't just surviving. They're thriving, growing, expanding, and evolving into something that no longer fits in the past. Something that belongs. Right now. So what happens when humans enter the picture? At first, fear. Ancient oceans become legends. Stories of massive serpents dragging ships under. Shadows beneath the waves. And maybe those stories weren't myths. But here's the twist. Humans adapt too. We hunt. We organize. We weaponize. And eventually, we fight back. Just like whales were hunted thousands of years ago, Titanoboa might have become a target. Food. Threat. Trophy. And slowly, their numbers drop. But not to zero. Never zero. Because some environments are too vast, too deep, too hidden. And that's where they remain. Rare. Elusive. Almost forgotten. Until now. Because something is changing again. Global temperatures are rising. Oceans warming. Habitats shifting. And for a creature that once thrived in heat, that's an opportunity. But here's the strange part. Their original food sources are disappearing. Fish stocks collapsing. Ecosystems breaking. So what's left? What's abundant? What's everywhere? Us. And that's when the idea stops being a theory and starts becoming a warning. Because if something like Titanoboa ever adapted this far, ever survived this long, then the real question isn't where it went. It's this. If it's still evolving, what has it become? And more importantly, would you even recognize it before it's too late?